Let's examine Leo Tolstoy's proposal in chapter 24 about true love and happiness. First, the definition of true love. For Tolstoy, true love is goodwill for all persons with all self-interest removed. And true love is to be contrasted with partial love. A quote about true love on page 132. Love is a preference for other creatures above yourself, your animal individuality. That's a term of Tolstoy's. Short, animal individuality is our self-centered consciousness. In chapter 24, Leo Tolstoy tells us that true love isn't an emotion, precisely. It isn't a mood. That's the ordinary concept of love. According to Tolstoy, true love is impartial, and it is something rational. He describes it as a quiet and joyous state. And he also asserts that children possess true love, and mature persons may possess true love. Let's look at a quote about true love in chapter 25, which I think is really nice. This is on page 136. Tolstoy writing, "Who among the living does not know that blessed feeling, even if it is experienced just once, and most likely in very earliest childhood, when the soul was not littered with the falsehood that stifles life within us, that blessed feeling of tender serenity when you want to love everyone, those near and dear, father, mother, brothers, but also wicked people, enemies, a dog, a horse, a blade of grass. You want one thing, that everyone feel good, that everyone be glad. What you want even more is that you be the one who makes this happen, who makes everyone well. You want to devote yourself, your whole life, so that everyone will always be well and joyous. This is it. This is that same love where the life of man resides." In chapter 24, Tolstoy refers to true love as an activity. It requires some effort, some action when we have true love. It isn't a passive state. And he also refers in chapter 24 to serving others. So when I have a goodwill for all persons, I am disposed to serve those persons. In chapter 24, Tolstoy refers to true love as the essence of life. In other words, the very core of a human life. And he also asserts that true love is the key to happiness. Leo Tolstoy, in On Life, reasons about true love. He thinks that by thinking and reasoning, we can come to these conclusions about the importance of true love. And he also indicates his faith in sacred scripture, in the New Testament in particular. And he quotes in chapter 24 from sacred scripture. So, in short, Tolstoy offers compatibilism about his proposals. And we should also note that several of our authors have touched on this theme about love. Recently, Martin Luther King's love ethic is also a goodwill for all persons, in particular my adversaries. Louisa May Alcott's path of duty is an attempt to put away one's feelings and self-interest in order to serve others. And our Roman Catholic authors, St. Thomas Aquinas and Pope St. John, both discuss the importance of charity. For the Roman Catholic tradition, charity is the term for true love. According to Leo Tolstoy, when we pursue life in the ordinary fashion, when we are in what he calls our animal individuality, in other words, our ordinary self, pursuing my own life, the happiness which we pursue ultimately leads to a contradiction. In short, human life has a contradiction in it. What is a contradiction? A contradiction is defined as the error we make when we assert something is true and at the same time we assert it is false. According to Tolstoy, human life, when it's pursued from a self-centered perspective, leads to a contradiction. On the one hand, we wish for fulfillment, we wish for what we might call happiness and the good life, and at the same time, these goals become impossible, according to Tolstoy. How is this possible? According to Tolstoy, all humans naturally pursue their own life, and we at first assume that we ourselves have an exclusive privilege of having a life. In time and in experience, says Tolstoy, we come to realize that there are other lives besides our own, and the other persons also have this same sort of self-centeredness. And through experience, we also come to depend upon other persons to pursue our own happiness. We form relationships within our families. We depend upon others for certain resources, and at times we also take from others, says Tolstoy. And all of those others, claims our author, are also pursuing their happiness. The result is that all of us are in uncertainty about our happiness, says Tolstoy. And this uncertainty culminates with the terror of the very end of life. Even as we wish for happiness, says Tolstoy, we also come to realize that our human life has a very end to it. For Tolstoy, this is another example of the contradictory character of human life when it's pursued from a self-centered perspective. St. Thomas Aquinas distinguishes imperfect happiness and perfect happiness. Tolstoy goes a step further and argues that human happiness, when pursued from the perspective of the self, is impossible. Let's now summarize our author's ideas. First, according to Tolstoy, human life is inherently contradictory when pursued from a selfish perspective, and he thinks we often overlook this contradiction. We persevere in pursuing our own life and to some extent our relationships with others. However, through experience, through reasoning, we come to recognize the contradictory nature, that ultimately happiness is impossible. And when we arrive at that point, we now have the opportunity to renounce pursuing my own life. Renunciation is a term in chapter 24. A person understands that pursuing my own life must fail. That reminds me of Louisa May Alcott in 1862, when she is unhappy and wants to make a step forward in her life. So she's going to serve others. I think that is very similar to Tolstoy's idea. According to Tolstoy, when I renounce my own life, when I renounce my animal individuality, true love may then form in me. There's a nice statement on page 133. The author says, the goodwill toward the goodwill toward all that had been locked up in his heart will flow forth. So, renunciation of my own life, pursuing my own life, then prepares the way for true love to form in me. And finally, with true love in me, I can commit to serving those others who are available to me, says Tolstoy. We're informed by the concepts of the ancient and medieval world, and having read, for example, Aquinas, we can identify this true love as charity, one of the theological virtues, and we learn from Aquinas that it is an infused habit. It is a habit given to us, perhaps gradually, perhaps all at once, by loving God. And moreover, according to Aquinas, charity is a habit of living in friendship with God, and also the habit of loving my neighbor, which perhaps could be taken to mean all other human beings. It's not clear from reading chapter 24 that Tolstoy treats true love as an infused habit, as a gift from God. However, when he does talk about the unlocking of true love within our hearts, that is arguably an example of an infused habit.